The restaurant was filled with the scent of roasted garlic and fresh bread, soft jazz humming beneath the chatter of wealthy customers. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above white linen tables, and waiters in pressed black uniforms glided like shadows between them. In a corner booth, two little girls sat quietly, their tiny hands clutching an empty plate that once held a slice of pizza they had saved their coins for all week. They were thin, dressed in worn hand-me-downs, their hair messy from the wind outside. Their mother, a woman with tired eyes and a trembling smile, was wiping crumbs from the table when it happened, the sound that made everyone turn. "Clean it with your tongue," barked the manager, his voice slicing through the hum of conversation like a whip. "If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in the simple power of standing up for what's right, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Kindness Chronicles. These stories aren't just tales, they're reminders of what it means to be human." The woman froze, her hands suspended mid-air, holding a napkin. Her cheeks flushed a deep red, and tears instantly filled her eyes. The two girls looked at the man towering above them, confused and frightened. The older one, maybe 7, wrapped an arm protectively around her little sister. The restaurant fell silent. The manager, a tall man in his 40s with slicked-back hair and an expensive watch, pointed at a small spot of spilled sauce on the floor. "That fell from your table," he snapped. "You people always come in here and make a mess. You want to eat here like rich folks? Then clean up after yourselves, with your tongue if you have to." The mother shook her head, whispering an apology, bending to pick up a napkin, but the man's voice grew louder. He wanted the room to hear him. He wanted to humiliate her. "No, no, don't use that. You think you can hide your filth behind a napkin? You and your kids shouldn't even be here." The girls began to cry softly, their mother pleading under her breath for the man to stop. But he didn't. He took a cruel step closer, sneering down at her as if she were less than human. At a nearby table, a man in a gray suit had been quietly observing. He looked about 45, with streaks of silver in his dark hair and calm eyes that rarely betrayed emotion. But now, those eyes burned. His name was Ethan Cole, CEO of one of the country's largest real estate firms, a man whose name appeared on magazine covers, whose face had been seen shaking hands with presidents. Yet here, in this dimly lit restaurant, he wasn't the billionaire philanthropist. He was simply a human being watching cruelty unfold before him. He watched as the mother tried to pull her daughters toward the door, their tiny shoes scraping against the polished floor, the eyes of diners following them, some in pity, most in silence. And then the manager shouted again, "Yeah, that's right, run off. People like you don't belong here." He turned and laughed, brushing imaginary dust from his sleeve. But before he could take another step, Ethan rose from his seat. The sound of his chair scraping against the floor was sharp enough to make heads turn. He walked slowly toward the scene, each step deliberate. The manager turned, startled. "Sir, I apologize for the disturbance," he said quickly, his tone suddenly polite. "We don't usually allow." Ethan's voice was low, but it carried through the room like thunder. "What did you just say to that woman?" The manager hesitated, forcing a fake smile. "Just handling a customer who—" Ethan cut him off, his tone cold as ice. "No. Repeat it. Out loud. What did you say?" The restaurant went dead silent again. Even the waiters stopped moving. The manager swallowed hard, his earlier arrogance faltering. "I was just—" "Clean it with your tongue." Ethan said the words slowly, each syllable landing like a stone. "That's what you told her, right?" The man's eyes darted nervously. "It was a joke. She overreacted." Ethan stepped closer, his jaw tightening. "You think it's funny to humiliate a woman in front of her children? You think poverty makes someone less deserving of respect?" His voice was calm but terrifyingly firm. The manager stammered something about maintaining standards, but Ethan reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and threw a black card on the counter. Here. Bill me for every table in this restaurant. The manager blinked, confused. Excuse me? Ethan's gaze didn't waver. You heard me. Every table. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered his name, "That's Ethan Cole," and suddenly, recognition spread like wildfire. Cameras began to lift discreetly, people murmuring. But Ethan didn't care. His eyes were on the doorway where the mother and her daughters stood, frozen in disbelief. He walked to them, slowly kneeling to the girl's level. "Did you come here for dinner?" he asked softly. The older one nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. "We wanted to surprise Mom. It's her birthday." Something in Ethan's chest broke at that moment. He looked up at the mother, whose lips trembled as she whispered, "Please, sir, don't cause trouble. We'll leave." Ethan shook his head. "No. Not tonight." He stood, turned to the stunned diners, and said, "Everyone in this restaurant will eat free tonight. Courtesy of the woman that man just tried to humiliate." The manager's jaw dropped. "You can't do that." Ethan glared. "I own this place now. Or rather, I just bought it." He pulled out his phone and made a call, his voice calm but commanding. Within minutes, the restaurant's regional director arrived, having received a transfer order signed digitally by Ethan Cole himself. The manager's face turned pale as he realized his career was finished. But Ethan wasn't done. He turned back to the mother. "You said it's your birthday?" She nodded, barely holding back tears. "Then let's celebrate properly." He led her and her daughters to the table he had been sitting at, the best one in the house, and personally called the chef to prepare their meal. The two girls' eyes widened when plates of warm pasta, crispy breadsticks, and chocolate desserts began to appear before them. As they ate, Ethan watched quietly, thinking of his own mother, a single woman who had scrubbed floors so he could go to school, who had endured humiliation just to feed him. He remembered the nights she cried when no one was looking. The same look was in this woman's eyes when he saw her, that tired mix of love and pain, of endurance and shame. Hours passed. When they were done, Ethan handed her an envelope. "For you and your daughters," he said simply. Inside was not just money but a letter, an offer of employment at one of his hotels, complete with housing and schooling for the girls. The woman covered her mouth, shaking her head in disbelief. "Why?" she whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. "Because I saw my mother in you. And I couldn't walk away." In the following weeks, the story went viral. Security footage of the incident flooded social media, not of the humiliation, but of Ethan's act of kindness. The restaurant was renamed the Second Chance Cafe, employing people who had struggled to find work. The manager issued a public apology, later joining a charity initiative for single mothers started by Ethan himself. But the most beautiful moment came months later, at the cafe's reopening. The two little girls, now neatly dressed in their new school uniforms, stood on stage beside their mother, reading a small speech written in their childish handwriting, "To the man who helped us when everyone else looked away, thank you for seeing us, not as poor people, but as people." Ethan wiped a tear from his eye, realizing that sometimes, the smallest act of standing up for someone could ripple into something far greater than power or wealth. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that kindness still has the power to change the world, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Kindness Chronicles. Speech Balloon special request, tell us in the comments, what's one act of kindness you'll never forget?